Welcome back to Raising Unicorns. I'm Benton Crane, and today's episode features Shane Rickard, our Chief Creative Officer, and Brett Crocket, our Marketing Director. If you're wondering whether you should create your ad or your landing page first, they explain exactly what you should do. Unicorns are real. In the past 8 years, Harmon Brothers has helped raise 5 unicorns. Yes, that's 5 companies with $1 billion valuation, with at least 6 more companies right on the cusp of becoming unicorns. Here on Raising Unicorns, we share the lessons we've learned to help you grow your business by tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. It's time to start raising a unicorn of your own.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Raising Unicorns. My name is Shane Rickard. I am the Chief Creative Officer at Harmon Brothers.
And I'm Brett Crocket. I am the Marketing Director at Harmon Brothers. Happy to be here with you, Shane.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you.
Always nice to be in the room with you.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about a little bit of kind of question we get a lot, this topic a lot, and it's talking about what comes first, the ad or the funnel. This comes up quite a lot with a lot of our clients.
And everybody's favorite answer?
It depends.
It depends. It is the most annoying answer ever, but it is the truth. Financial advisors, anybody who doesn't want to give you a straight answer, I feel like they're like, well, it depends, and we'll talk about it, and you'll pay me some money, and then we'll figure it out. The reality on this one is it actually does depend, and we're going to talk about exactly why and how you can make that decision.
And we won't even charge you money for that.
No, this is free. This is free. Well, wait a second. What could we could turn this into a product, right?
This podcast has been brought to you by our Patreon page. bretandshane.com.patreon. I don't think that's how it works. Anyway.
No, good. Yeah, I don't know. I've never paid on Patreon, but
yeah.
All right, there is the right answer, and it depends on where you're coming at things from. It depends on sort of the philosophy, and I think, Shane, you're going to talk about a little bit. It depends on your product as well, right?
Yeah. What do you want your ad to do? If you want your ad to do all the selling, that's you're really going to be worried about like designing your ad first in many ways, because you got to figure out what you're going to take them through, like to convince them to get them to be sold, right? If you think it's going to be a longer selling process, then you would probably want to design, and you want the website to do that, which can have a lot more copy, a lot more content on there than you can jam into an ad that you think people will reasonably watch on a platform. And you might just want that ad to be something that teases, gets the idea of it out, and then gets them to the landing page as fast as possible, where you have that long landing page that walks them through all of the value building and all the, answering questions and concerns in a written form or visual form, where you have a little bit more time to do that. So I think it depends on what you want the ad to do, whether it's to gain interest in the product first and get them to the landing page, or to sell from start to finish.
Right. And as you're saying that, it also reminds me, it depends on the platform as well, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
If you think about the content that you're creating, TikTok as an example, you're probably not, you don't have time for a 5-minute ad, right? To walk people through the sale, resolving their concerns and all that kind of stuff. And so in a case where you're creating an ad for that specific platform, you probably want a really great hook that's going to intrigue people and drive them to your landing page, where the landing page is going to do the majority of the sale for you, because that's where they are now. They're not going to spend all of that time that they might, over on YouTube.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think, like you say that with like Instagram, I think of the ads that I've clicked on, it's usually ones that are really good product demonstrations where I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. Like, this is a really cool product. Then I click through. And then when I go to a different platform, it's almost like my mindset of how I consume content on a web page is very different from TikTok. TikTok, I'm like, next, and say, like you were saying with YouTube, it's like YouTube, I am used to watching 20, 30-minute videos.
Yeah, I'm sitting down for this.
Yeah, I want to watch this or listen to this while I'm doing the dishes or whatever, or watch it while I'm waiting for a flight or whatever. I am okay sitting through that. And so in that case, if your platform is YouTube, you might be able to go from 0 to sold on that platform. And maybe something on Instagram or TikTok where it's a lot more flash in the pan type attention, you might just be like, please click through to the website, so your brain can shift to be like, you're on a website now. Calm down. Stop scrolling. Right. There's not another video underneath their webpage, And so it gives consumers that chance to shift their mind and maybe read a little bit more about your product before they go back to watching cat videos. It's changed over time for us at Harmon Brothers, because I think between the actual campaign that we're working on and the product and the price point, as well as when we did the campaign for the client, essentially. Because back in the day, when we started off on some of our earlier campaigns like Purple or even Camp Chef, there were these big ticket items where where we really wanted to take people from zero to sold, honestly, like within the ad. And that's how we wrote the ad with that in mind. And so the landing page was really just like a place to like click buy. Like it was not like, okay, here you guys have to spend 20 minutes reading more copy about why this mattress and or smoker are.
It's a bundle deal.
It's a bundle. We sold them two together. Would you like sleep in good meats? Then we've got the landing page for you.
With the waft of smoke streaming through your nostrils. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that was our kind of original philosophy. And with those campaigns, at least, we were very much trying to take them from zero to sold. And I think that like that worked for a time. I think that like as the digital marketplace has changed and evolved, that very much so has not become the norm, I would say, anymore.
Right. Yeah. It's much more difficult these days to just expect your ad to do all of the work. And that landing page, like you said, just to almost be a checkout. The customer requires a lot of different things now. In fact, we used to build, and we still do build landing pages where we're walking people through the sale, but there's so many more, there's more competitors that are out there advertising. There's people that are more skeptical because of some of the ads that they've seen. And so that landing page generally has to do a lot more work than it did back in the early days. Now, we still create ads like that from click to sold, right? From zero to sold, but they are, and it's amazing when they work, don't get me wrong. So we often create those and we see great success with them. But I think in today's landscape, it becomes so much more of a game of content.
One of the things that we've realized over time, and as the evolution of the marketplace has changed, like especially now, if we say we went back and did purple, like now with $1,000 to $1,500 price point, now Facebook has limited a lot of our attribution and tracking that we can do. So we only have about a 24-hour window if we can retarget those people with any kind of like actual validity of retargeting them.
It's difficult to target in the way that we used to. And in many cases, it's impossible, right? So we're having to use other tools. We've got to use, more complicated attribution. For some clients, we're even doing manual attribution where we're like using spreadsheets and stuff like that to get that right. And so because of the changes in the privacy of advertising and devices and operating systems and all that kind of stuff, we have to almost go back to old school marketing tactics where we're saying we see a customer journey through a full phase of there's the awareness stage, there's a consideration stage. You're basically walking people through this funnel and you're doing it manually where, people who have only been ad buying for the last 5 years or whatever, they're used to the algorithm doing all that work for them. And so that's been probably the largest change in marketing that we've seen in, the last 10 years.
Yeah, which is a huge change. It's been a huge shock to a lot of people's systems for sure. And I think too now, the only time that I can think of, and you can correct me if you think otherwise, Crocket, that I can think of where that zero to sold with a very minimal landing page that doesn't require a lot of thought of how it will complement the video will still work and sell are for very low entry, like kind of impulse purchases.
Impulse buy, yep.
$25 or less. That's like universal application where it's like, hey, that was neat. I'm going to buy that.
Yeah.
$20?
Right.
Sure. $50? Sure. You know what I mean? Like
right.
It's low, it doesn't take a lot of evaluation or like gaining a lot of interest and trust.
Yeah. It's that purchase window is very small for a low ticket item as opposed to something like a $2,000 or a $3,000 mattress where people are doing a ton of research. And because that window is so much longer, it could be a month or more, ads just don't work the same way they used to for those particular products. And you see that in the marketplace. They've changed their strategies because of that.
And I think there's also there's less skepticism around like the landing page too, like with a lower price point product. I mean, you should always try and design your page that has, a level of like certain polish and legitimacy to it, but they're not going to scrutinize it the same way it is when you're trying to sell $1,000 smoker to you, where it's like, this thing that looks like it was designed in 2004, you're probably going to be like, is this a real company? Is this real? Is this a real offer? There's a different level of expectation from the consumer for sure.
Right. Now, I will say the one thing that's also difficult about selling those lower priced products, the impulse buy type stuff, is that usually the cart value on those things is so low that it's still difficult to be successful with advertising if you don't have all your ducks in a row, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're not doing
there's
the
just
basics,
a minimum level there you have to achieve. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. I think that goes back to the point. Whether you start with your ad or your landing page, they should be done together, there's no case where you're going to run an ad and you don't have a landing page to send someone to. And so I think it makes more sense to start with the goal of what are we trying to accomplish with this campaign? What's the landing page that's going to accomplish that? And what are the ads that are going to accomplish that, right? And when you approach it from that standpoint, from the goal, rather than, well, should we make an ad or should we make a landing page? Well, guess what? We're going to be doing both, so it doesn't matter. Let's make sure that the customer experience is such that when someone sees your ad and they're intrigued by it, they click onto the landing page, they feel like they landed in the right spot, they get the confidence they need to actually go through with adding it to cart and checking out.
Right.
Okay, let's talk for a second about, I think, this idea that, in your ad, you have all the messaging that you typically think of, and on a landing page, you have all these typical sections that you might normally think of on a landing page. But the fact is that a lot of those are shared between each other, right? And so when we're building landing pages, a lot of times we will use the same copy from the ad and we'll put those on the landing page. We'll use the same imagery. Because again, from a customer experience standpoint, we want people to land on that page and say like, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to continue, learning about this product to the point where they can actually check out. I think there's 3 elements that you want to be aware of when you're creating an ad or when you're creating your landing page. And those are your offer, your audience, and your copy. So I think it's important to cover those because we have sort of a standard principle that was developed by Ed Mayer. If you haven't heard of that guy, he's like the godfather of direct mail advertising from back in the 50s.
Propaganda.
Yeah, he was. Really interesting story where he was even writing leaflets to drop out of planes during World War II and stuff like that. So his principle was that the success of your promotion or of your advertising is going to be attributable about 40% to your offer, 40% to your audience, and 20% from your messaging. Now, I don't know whether those percentages hold up in today's world of scroll, maybe click. But I think the important point there is that you've got to consider those things. And I would say that your offer, where he originally said 40%, and I don't mean to, disagree with Ed Mayer, but your offer is likely the most important piece of anything that you're going to do, whether in your ad or on your landing page. And so what we like to talk about when we're setting up funnels is testing. You don't know if your ad's going to work or if your product's going to sell better or worse unless you start testing something. And so along with, should I be creating my ad first or my landing page first? Regardless of what your answer is to that, you should be testing right out the gate.
Yeah. So one of the offerings we did was for a company that was a security service, and the thing that was hard is when we initially talked to this company, they had they're traditionally a door knocking company.
Yeah, you could say door-to-door sales. Yeah,
door-to-door
I remember
sales.
this. Yeah, for sure.
And one of the things we talked about is like, listen, if we're going to do an ad for you, it needs to be on a digital transaction, the whole thing. Like whether that's like getting to the point where they're putting some money down, they're having an installer come out and actually customize whatever the final setup of their system is. But people want to buy stuff online. They don't want to submit a form.
Call a phone number.
To call a phone number
right.
or then have a rep reach out to them. That's not how modern commerce works anymore.
Right.
There's a certain expectation of how you buy something online that needs to be met. And initially we got the green light from that. We couldn't get it in writing just because of problems with what they felt like they could actually agree to with 100% certainty.
Promise, yeah.
Promise to us. And ultimately, when it came down to it, it was going to be a huge lift for their company to build an entirely online funnel that would allow them to do what we asked for, is to basically buy a system without ever having to have a rep talk to them or a salesperson. And so we did what we could in the sense that we started, that we had the ad go to a landing page, which led them through to a phone number, which is my worst nightmare.
I know. Does anybody on Instagram see an ad and call a phone number?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Because then you got to switch over to your phone, type the first 3 numbers, switch back over, hope that the ad's still paused, type the next 4 numbers, switch back over. There's so
a disaster.
You can't even click through. I don't think at the time they even had the functionality to click to call on the ad on Facebook. So it was funny because the ad had incredible metrics as far as the interest level, and the education was really, really high.
That was a great ad.
And then the thing that was so frustrating is the the team told us on their side that when they would get there, customers were like too educated and they hadn't written a new script for like the inbound salespeople. So they were trying to resell them on things that they were already convinced. And the customers, they had calls where the customers were getting annoyed. They're like, yeah,
just let me buy it.
I get it. Can you like, how do I buy this thing you've asked me to buy? And you're like, well, so the neat thing about our system is, you know, right. And so it's just one of those things where that is so incredibly important to nail the offer and really understand what the customers are willing to buy and making sure that the messaging and the way that you're directing them is the best way to get them to a purchase. Because we put that in that case, there were so many different like barriers that
different
were in the
levels,
way,
different steps, yeah.
You know, that like made it so it's like, forget this, man. I was on board until all these like things got in my way. So I think that's really important. And then, you know, there's other ones where we've nailed the offer, and it's been like the economics of the offer is really what allows us to scale the ad ultimately.
Yeah.
You know, if we get the basket size up to a certain level, then we can lean into ad spend and really grow it.
Yep. Yeah, you can nail the original offer, but you should still be testing it because you can always increase that cart size, right? There's not always, but that's why we test.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're going to run a test and your cart, you know, your value is going to go down. Mm-hmm. You're going to run another test and it's going to go back up. And the idea is to constantly be raising all of your metrics, right, over time with these campaigns. And then there's no way to just go into something as much as we think we're right about things, right? As much testing as we've done in the past 13 years or whatever of the agency, we are constantly surprised by the results of the tests.
Yeah. I feel like the assumption that you're probably wrong on something is a safe assumption for both like a healthy level of humility, you know, to stave off some hubris. Yeah. But I think like Fiverrfix is another great example where we had a phenomenal video that drove an enormous amount of traffic to their site.
Most viral ever, wouldn't you say? I think of the ads that we've done.
Yeah, I think it like garnered the most viral attention and just a tremendous amount of like actual interest. But I think that it took months for us to really hone that offer to where the economics worked on the back end to have a big enough basket size to lean into the spend at a level. So it's funny because just because something's crazy viral or the ad is like getting eyeballs galore and people love it, they think it's funny, they get the messaging, like the offer has to be right to make the whole thing top to bottom really work. So test those offers. All right, so we're going to wrap this up here with some really great key takeaways, right, Crocket?
Yeah. Are you reading directly off the script now, Shane?
No. So whether your ad or your funnel...
Oh, you spelled it wrong.
Oh,
Let's get some punctuation in there.
So no, it really doesn't matter whether you design your ad or funnel first in many instances, as long as you're considering, you know, the customer experience and what you want each thing to do. That's the most important thing. You understand what goal you want them to accomplish in that sales process.
Yeah, decide whether the intent of your ad is to take a cold audience and turn them into a customer on the first touch, or whether your goal is to generate interest and then let your landing page make the sale.
Yeah, and regardless, you should be working on it at the same time. The goal is for the experience to be seamless. So they have to feel like they're together. They like feel intentional. There's not this like big cognitive dissonance of like, wait, is this the right landing page? Am I on the right website?
I've had that happen, by the way.
Exactly. Right. I'm pretty sure you probably didn't purchase.
I didn't. How'd you know? All right, and you should always be testing that landing page. So easy tests for your landing page. Let me give you a couple of ideas here. So number one, imagery. Super simple, super quick to switch out. Video, super simple to switch out, as long as you have other video, I guess, to swap it out with. Headlines, super easy. But I will say that those things are less likely to have as much impact as what I would consider the biggest needle mover, your offer.
Yeah. Which we talked about quite a bit. And you should always be testing the ad. And sometimes I think people get really intimidated by testing the ad, but there's some easy ways you can test up front. In pre-launch, you should be testing your thumbnail, the ad copy, and the intro and hook. That's probably the hardest one because you have to shoot more footage. But like the ad copy is one specifically. We've seen massive swings in performance when you get the right copy. So don't be afraid of the ad copy testing. And if you have the resources to change out the intro or re-edit your video to have a different lead in, you'll be surprised because it has a massive swing on performance.
Yep. And then always test audiences. So you don't know what's going to happen at first when you put it out there to a certain audience. It may flop. It may do great. Regardless of how it's doing, you should be bringing new people in and testing those new audiences so that you can get your message out to more people.
Yeah. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. It's always fun for us to talk about some experiences we've had and be able to impart some of those experiences and knowledge to help other marketers achieve kind of the needs that they have.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Crocket.
For many businesses, customer acquisition and ad buying has been a nightmare ever since iOS 14. If you want help navigating the craziness of the e-commerce market, Harmon Brothers is offering a free webinar with 3 golden metrics you've probably never heard of. These metrics could help turn your company into a money-making machine. Just email us and we'll send you our value-packed video. You can reach us at podcast@harmonbrothers.com. Once again, that's podcast@harmonbrothers.com.